Anna had always loved visiting her mother's attic. It was a treasure trove of memories, filled with dusty boxes, forgotten trinkets, and the faint smell of old books. On this particular Saturday, the attic was unusually warm, and Anna, now 25, had volunteered to help her mother, Linda, sort through years of clutter. Linda had decided it was time to downsize, and Anna figured it would be a nice way to spend the day together. The two women worked side by side, chatting and laughing as they unearthed old photo albums, childhood toys, and Christmas decorations that hadn't seen the light of day in decades. Anna held up a stuffed bear with a missing eye. "Mom, why did you even keep this?" she asked with a grin, holding the bear up for Linda to see. Linda chuckled, wiping sweat from her forehead. "That's your bear, you know. You dragged it everywhere when you were little. I couldn't bring myself to throw it away." Anna laughed, placing the bear in the donate pile. The afternoon was shaping up to be a pleasant trip down memory lane, and Anna enjoyed hearing her mother's anecdotes about their family's past. But as the hours went by, Anna noticed Linda growing quiet, her normally cheerful demeanor fading as they moved to an older, untouched corner of the attic. "What's in this box?" Anna asked, pointing to a large cardboard container sealed with thick packing tape. Linda hesitated, her lips tightening. "Oh, that's just some old paperwork. Nothing interesting." But Anna was curious. "Do you need me to sort through it? Maybe there's stuff we can shred or toss." Before Linda could respond, Anna pulled the box closer and began cutting through the tape. Inside were stacks of faded envelopes, bound together with twine. Some were yellowed with age, others still crisp. Anna picked up one of the bundles and saw that the top envelope was addressed to her mother, dated 1991. Just a year before Anna was born. Linda quickly reached for the letters. "Anna, you don't need to look through those," she said, her voice unusually firm. "Why not?" Anna asked, her curiosity now fully piqued. She pulled one of the envelopes free before Linda could stop her and slipped out the letter inside. The handwriting was neat and unfamiliar. "Dear Linda, I can't stop thinking about you. These past few weeks have been the happiest I've had in years. I know this isn't easy for either of us, but being with you feels right in a way I can't explain. I'll do whatever it takes to be part of your life, and hers. I just hope you feel the same. Anna's hands froze. The letter was signed simply, Mark. "Who's Mark?" Anna asked, looking up at her mother. Linda's face was pale, her usual composure cracking. She reached for the letter, but Anna held onto it tightly. "Mom, who is he? What is this about?" Linda stammered, avoiding Anna's eyes. He's an old friend, someone I knew a long time ago." "A long time ago? These letters are from before I was born," Anna pointed out, her voice rising. "It's complicated, Anna," Linda said, her tone pleading. "It's not something you need to worry about." But Anna was already flipping through the stack, her heart pounding as she scanned the letters. Each one seemed more intimate than the last, painting a picture of a secret relationship Linda had kept hidden for decades. One letter mentioned our little girl, while another spoke of how much I want to be there for her. Anna's stomach twisted. "Does Dad know about this?" Linda's face darkened. "Stop, Anna. Please, just stop reading." Anna's mind was racing. Her father, David, had always been a steady presence in her life. He wasn't the type to write love letters or make grand romantic gestures, but he had always been there. Reliable, loving, supportive. These letters didn't sound like him at all. "Mark isn't just some friend, is he?" Anna pressed, her voice shaking. Linda sighed deeply, her shoulders slumping. "Mark was someone I knew before your father and I got married," she admitted reluctantly. We were close. But it's in the past, Anna. It doesn't matter anymore." "It doesn't matter?" Anna echoed, disbelief creeping into her tone. She waved the letter in her hand. "This doesn't sound like something that's just in the past, Mom. He wanted to be part of my life." "What does that mean? Was he talking about me?" Linda's silence was deafening. "Mom," Anna said, her voice breaking, "is Mark my father?" Linda's head snapped up, her eyes wide. "No!" "Anna, no. Your father is David. He's always been your father." "But biologically?" Anna pressed. Linda didn't answer right away. She turned away, wiping her hands on her jeans as if trying to scrub away the tension in the room. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Mark, he could be. I don't know for sure." The words hit Anna like a punch to the gut. Her legs felt weak and she sat down on an old trunk, clutching the letter in her hand. "You don't know?" Linda turned back to face her daughter, tears streaming down her face. "I was young, Anna. I made mistakes. Mark and we were together for a short time, but then I met your father, and everything changed. David was the stable one, the one who wanted to build a life with me. When I found out I was pregnant, I didn't know who the father was, but David didn't care. He wanted to raise you as his own. And I let him." Anna felt like the ground beneath her had shifted. Her entire life, she had believed in the stability of her family, the unwavering love of her parents. Now, that foundation felt cracked and fragile. "Does Mark know?" she asked. Linda nodded slowly. "He wanted to be part of your life, but I told him it wasn't his place. I wanted to protect you, Anna. I wanted you to have a normal family, and Mark, he wasn't ready to be a father." Anna sat in silence, her mind racing with questions. She thought about all the times she had seen Mark at family gatherings, how he had always been kind and attentive but never more than a distant figure in her life. Could he have been hiding this secret all along? "I need to talk to him," Anna said finally, standing up. "No," Linda said quickly. "Anna, please. This will only cause more pain. Your father, David, he's the one who's been there for you. He's the one who loves you." "But he might not be my father," Anna said, her voice trembling. "I deserve to know the truth." Linda didn't argue. She simply sat down, burying her face in her hands as Anna walked out of the attic, clutching the letters tightly. That night, Anna couldn't sleep. Her mind was consumed by the possibility that the man she had called Uncle Mark her entire life might actually be her father. The thought filled her with a strange mix of anger, sadness, and curiosity. She knew one thing for certain: she couldn't ignore this. The truth, no matter how painful, was something she needed to confront. The following morning, Anna awoke with a heavy heart. The previous day's discovery felt like a strange dream, but the bundle of letters on her bedside table confirmed its painful reality. Her mother's tearful confession played on repeat in her mind, and she couldn't shake the thought of Uncle Mark. He wasn't just an acquaintance or family friend, he might be her father. For as long as Anna could remember, Mark had been a peripheral figure in her life. He was her father's best friend from college and a regular guest at family events, always kind and warm, but never overly involved. She recalled birthdays where he brought thoughtful, though modest, gifts, and Christmas dinners where he lingered quietly in the background, laughing at jokes but never staying too late. Now, every interaction she'd had with him seemed charged with new meaning. Determined to find answers, Anna sat down at her desk and began drafting a message to Mark. But how do you write something like that? She started and stopped several times, struggling to find the right words. Finally, she settled on something simple. _Hi, Mark. I hope this message finds you well. I was wondering if we could meet sometime soon. There's something important I'd like to talk to you about. _. She hesitated before hitting send, but reminded herself that this wasn't something she could ignore. With a deep breath, she pressed the button, her heart pounding as the message disappeared into the digital void. Hours passed with no reply, and Anna's anxiety grew. What if he didn't respond? What if he didn't want to talk? Or worse, what if he denied everything? She tried to distract herself by cleaning her apartment and running errands, but her phone was never far from reach. It wasn't until late afternoon that Mark replied. "Hi, Anna, of course. Is everything okay? Let me know when and where and I'll be there. Underscore." His response was quick and polite, but Anna could sense a hint of concern in his words. She told him she was free the following evening and suggested a quiet cafe in the city. Mark agreed, and they set a time. The next day was agonizingly slow. Anna couldn't focus on work, her thoughts consumed by the upcoming meeting. She kept replaying potential scenarios in her head, imagining everything from Mark denying her claims to him breaking down and confessing the truth. By the time she arrived at the cafe, her nerves were stretched thin. The cafe was small and intimate, its warm lighting and rustic decor giving it a cozy atmosphere. Anna spotted Mark immediately, seated at a corner table with a cup of coffee in front of him. He looked the same as he always did, graying hair neatly combed, his face kind but worn with age. He smiled when he saw her, standing to greet her with a hug. "Anna," he said warmly, "it's so good to see you. Is everything all right?" His genuine concern made her throat tighten. She took a seat across from him, her hands trembling slightly as she wrapped them around the mug of tea she'd ordered. "Thanks for meeting me," she began, her voice shaky. "I know this is a little out of the blue." Mark tilted his head, studying her. "Of course, you know you can always reach out to me. What's on your mind?" Anna hesitated, the words catching in her throat. This was it, the moment she had been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. "I found something," she said finally, her eyes fixed on the table. "Some letters. From you. To my mom." Mark's expression shifted, a flicker of recognition passing over his face. He leaned back slightly in his chair, his hands resting on the table. "Letters," he repeated, his voice careful. Anna nodded. "From when she was pregnant with me. They made it sound like you thought you might be my father." Mark's face paled, and he looked down at his coffee, his fingers tightening around the mug. For a long moment, he didn't speak. When he finally looked up, his eyes were filled with a mix of sorrow and regret. "Anna," he began softly, I don't even know where to start." "Start with the truth," she said, her voice firmer now. "Are you my father?" Mark exhaled deeply, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know," he admitted. "I wanted to be, I still want to be. But your mom, she made it clear that wasn't my decision to make." Anna's heart sank. "What do you mean?" Mark leaned forward, his expression earnest. "Your mom and I were close. Very close. When she told me she was pregnant, I was overjoyed. But she told me there was a chance the baby wasn't mine. She was with your dad, too, and she wanted him to be the father, not me." "So you just walked away?" Anna asked, her voice tinged with anger. "It wasn't that simple," Mark said, his tone defensive. "I wanted to be part of your life, but Linda made it clear that she didn't want me interfering. She said it would only confuse things, that David was ready to step up and be your dad. She convinced me that staying away was what was best for you." Anna stared at him, her emotions swirling. "Anger, sadness, confusion? You just gave up? You didn't even fight for me?" Mark's face crumpled. "I thought I was doing the right thing," he said quietly. "I didn't want to cause a rift in their marriage or make your childhood harder. But that doesn't mean I stopped caring. I've always cared, Anna. I've always wanted to be there for you, even if it was just as, Uncle Mark." Tears welled in Anna's eyes. "So you don't even know if you're my father or not?" "No," Mark admitted. "I don't. But I've always felt like you were." The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken emotions. Anna didn't know what to say. She had come here hoping for clarity, but all she had were more questions. "Do you want to find out?" she asked finally, her voice barely above a whisper. Mark hesitated, his eyes searching hers. "Only if you do," he said. "I don't want to force anything on you, Anna. This is your life, your choice." Anna nodded, her mind racing. "I think I need to know," she said. "I need to know the truth, for myself." Mark reached across the table, his hand resting on hers. "Then we'll find out together," he said. "Whatever happens, I'm here for you. Always." For the first time since this ordeal began, Anna felt a glimmer of comfort. The path ahead was uncertain, but at least she wouldn't have to face it alone. The week leading up to the DNA test was one of the longest and most emotionally taxing periods of Anna's life. After her conversation with Mark, she couldn't bring herself to tell her mother or father about what she had set in motion. It felt too raw, too dangerous. Every time her phone buzzed with a text from her mom or her dad called to ask about her day, Anna felt like she was living a double life. She met Mark at a discreet clinic 2 towns over to avoid running into anyone they knew. The process itself was quick, just a cheek swab for both of them, but the wait for the results felt excruciating. Sitting in the sterile clinic room with Mark, Anna could feel the weight of his unspoken guilt. He fidgeted with his hands and avoided meeting her eyes until she finally broke the silence. "Are you nervous?" she asked, her voice soft. Mark hesitated before nodding. "More than you can imagine," he admitted. "I've spent years wondering if this day would ever come, and now that it's here—" He trailed off, shaking his head. "I just hope you know that no matter what the test says, I care about you. That's never going to change." Anna didn't know how to respond. She wanted to believe him, but her feelings were too jumbled to untangle. Part of her resented him for staying on the sidelines all these years, for not fighting harder to be in her life. But another part of her felt sorry for him, knowing he had been shut out by her mother's decision. The results were scheduled to arrive in a week, and Anna tried to throw herself into work to keep her mind occupied. But every day, the tension built. She couldn't stop analyzing every memory she had of Mark, every interaction they'd shared over the years. Had there been signs she'd missed, moments that hinted at a deeper connection? Then there was her father, David. He was blissfully unaware of the storm brewing around him, and that made Anna feel even worse. Her father had always been her rock, steady, reliable, and deeply devoted to their family. But now she found herself scrutinizing him, looking for traces of herself in his features or mannerisms. Would he ever forgive her if he found out about the test? The morning the results arrived, Anna woke up feeling sick with anxiety. The email notification popped up on her phone just after breakfast, and her hands shook as she opened it. She stared at the words on the screen, her heart pounding so loudly she could barely hear herself think. 99.99% probability of paternity. Mark was her father. Anna's breath caught in her throat, and tears welled in her eyes. She didn't know if she felt relief, anger, or something in between. The truth she had sought so desperately was now staring her in the face, and it left her feeling more conflicted than ever. She called Mark to tell him the news, and his reaction was immediate. "I knew it," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I always felt it in my heart. Anna, I don't even know what to say." "Neither do I," she admitted. "I don't know what happens next." "We figure it out together," Mark said firmly. "Whatever you need, I'm here." But figuring it out was easier said than done. The weight of the truth hung heavy over Anna's head, and she knew she couldn't keep it from her parents much longer. That weekend, she decided to tell them everything. She invited her mom and dad over for dinner, her stomach churning with dread as she set the table. They arrived together, smiling and chatting about their day, completely unaware of the bombshell she was about to drop. As they sat down to eat, Anna could barely touch her food. Her mother noticed right away. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" Linda asked, her brow furrowing. Anna put down her fork, her hands trembling. "I need to tell you both something," she began, her voice shaky. David and Linda exchanged a worried glance. "What is it?" her dad asked. Anna took a deep breath, her chest tightening. I found some letters in the attic a few weeks ago. From Mark. Linda's face went pale and David's expression hardened. What letters? He asked, his tone sharp. They were from before I was born, Anna continued. They made it sound like Mark might be my father. The room fell silent. David stared at Linda, his face a mixture of confusion and betrayal. Is that true? He asked her, his voice barely above a whisper. Linda opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. She looked down at her lap, tears streaming down her face. Mom, Anna said softly, I needed to know the truth, so I took a DNA test with Mark. Linda's head snapped up, her eyes wide with shock. You what? David's face was unreadable, but his hands were clenched into fists on the table. And what did it say? He asked, his voice trembling. Anna hesitated, her throat tightening. It said that Mark is my biological father. The words hung in the air like a bomb that had just gone off. Linda let out a strangled sob, burying her face in her hands. David pushed back his chair abruptly, standing up and pacing the room. How could you? He demanded, his voice rising as he turned to Linda. How could you keep something like this from me? From us? David, please, Linda pleaded, her voice shaking. I didn't know for sure, and you loved her so much. I didn't want to ruin what we had. You didn't want to ruin what you had, David shot back, his voice bitter. You lied to me for 25 years, Linda. 25 years. Anna felt tears streaming down her face. Dad, she said quietly, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. David turned to her, his expression softening slightly. You didn't do anything wrong, Anna, he said, his voice breaking. You just wanted the truth. But your mother... He shook his head, his jaw tightening. I was trying to protect our family, Linda said desperately. I didn't want Anna to grow up in a broken home. And instead you built our family on a lie, David said coldly. The rest of the night was a blur of shouting, tears, and accusations. Anna tried to mediate, but it was no use. Her parents' marriage, once seemingly unshakable, was now hanging by a thread. By the time they left, Anna was emotionally drained. She sat alone in her living room, staring at the photo of her family on the mantel. It felt like a relic from another life, a life that no longer existed. Mark called later that night to check on her. How did it go? He asked cautiously. Not well, Anna admitted, her voice heavy with exhaustion. I'm so sorry, Anna, Mark said. I never wanted to cause this much pain. I know, she said quietly, but it's not your fault. This was always going to come out eventually. As she hung up the phone, Anna realized that the truth, while liberating in some ways, had also shattered the foundation of her family. And now she had to figure out how to rebuild, if that was even possible. In the days following Anna's revelation, the air within her family became thick with tension, anger, and sorrow. Her parents, once inseparable and steady, had drifted into opposing worlds. Her father, David, moved out to stay with a friend, his sudden absence casting a shadow over every memory of their once unified home. Meanwhile, her mother, Linda, remained cloistered in silence, retreating into guilt and regret. Anna herself felt unmoored, struggling to reconcile the fragments of her identity. The truth she had fought so hard to uncover had come at an immense cost, and she wasn't sure if the price was worth it. A week after the explosive dinner, Anna found herself driving to her parents' house. The drive, once so familiar, now felt foreign, as if she were approaching a stranger's home. She had called ahead and asked to speak to Linda alone. There were too many things left unsaid, and Anna knew she needed answers. Linda greeted her at the door, her face pale and drawn. She looked smaller somehow, as if the weight of the past had physically diminished her. She motioned for Anna to come in, and they sat together in the living room, the silence between them almost unbearable. I don't know where to start, Linda admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Start with why," Anna said firmly. "Why did you lie? Why did you let Dad think I was his child when you weren't even sure?" Linda looked down at her hands, twisting them nervously. "I didn't mean for it to happen this way," she began. "When I found out I was pregnant, I was terrified. Your father and I were already having problems. He wanted to start a family, but I wasn't sure if we were ready. And then there was Mark." Her voice trailed off, and Anna's heart clenched. "Mark and I had been close," Linda continued, her cheeks flushing with shame. "It was a mistake, something that never should have happened. But when I realized I was pregnant, I knew there was a chance he could be the father. I also knew that if David found out, it would destroy him. He'd been waiting for this. He wanted to be a dad more than anything, and I thought I could give him that." "You didn't think I deserved the truth?" Anna asked, her voice trembling with anger. "I thought I was protecting you," Linda said, tears streaming down her face. "I thought if I could give you a stable family, a father who adored you, that it wouldn't matter who shared your DNA. I didn't want you to grow up feeling like you were someone's mistake." Anna's anger faltered, replaced by a wave of sadness. "But I was never Dad's to begin with," she said quietly. "You stole that from him. You stole it from me." Linda sobbed, covering her face with her hands. "I know," she said. "I know I've failed you, and I'll carry that guilt for the rest of my life." The conversation ended with no resolution, only a sense of shared grief. Anna left feeling emptier than when she'd arrived. The truth was out, but it hadn't brought the closure she'd hoped for. As the weeks passed, Anna tried to rebuild some semblance of normalcy. She returned to work, went out with friends, and even began attending therapy. But the rift in her family remained. Her father refused to speak to Linda, and while he still reached out to Anna, their conversations were strained. Mark, however, became a more consistent presence in Anna's life. At first, their meetings were awkward, filled with long silences and hesitant attempts at connection. But gradually, they began to find common ground. Mark shared stories from his youth, tales of his own struggles and triumphs, and Anna found herself beginning to see him not just as the man who might have been her father, but as someone who had always cared for her in his own quiet way. One evening, as they walked through a park near her apartment, Mark turned to Anna with a pensive expression. "I know this has been hard on you," he said, "and I don't want to push you into anything, but I hope you know that I'm here for you no matter what." Anna nodded, her heart heavy with conflicting emotions. "I know," she said, "and I appreciate it, but it's going to take time for me to figure out what kind of relationship we can have." "I understand," Mark said, his voice gentle. "Just know that I'll be here whenever you're ready." The turning point came months later, on Anna's birthday. Her father had called earlier in the week, asking if they could have dinner together. Anna hesitated but agreed, sensing that he had something important to say. When she arrived at the restaurant, she was surprised to see both her parents sitting at the table. The tension between them was palpable, but they both stood to greet her, their smiles tentative. "I asked your mom to come," David explained as they sat down. "There are some things we need to talk about, as a family." Anna's heart raced as she looked between them, unsure of what to expect. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," David said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "And I realized that as much as Linda hurt me, I can't change the past. What I can do is focus on the present, and on you." Anna blinked back tears, her throat tightening. "You're my daughter, Anna," David continued, "maybe not by blood, but in every way that matters, and I'm not going to let this change that." Linda reached across the table, her hand trembling as she placed it on Anna's. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness," she said softly, "but I want you to know how much I love you, and I'll do whatever it takes to make this right." Anna looked at them both, her heart aching with a mixture of pain and hope. For the first time in months, she saw the possibility of healing. Not a return to the way things were, but the chance to build something new. Over time, Anna's family began to mend. Her parents decided to separate, but they remained committed to supporting Anna and maintaining a respectful relationship. Mark continued to be a presence in her life, slowly earning her trust and finding his place as a father figure. Anna herself learned to embrace the complexity of her identity. She realized that family wasn't defined by biology alone, but by the love and commitment of the people who stood by her. On a crisp autumn evening, as Anna sat surrounded by her parents and Mark at a small dinner gathering, she felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in months. They weren't the perfect family, but they were hers, and in their imperfection she found strength, resilience, and a deeper understanding of what it meant to love and forgive.